everybody. Welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football on this August the 14th. Big news out there. The Associated Press, they agree with the coaches. They have Michigan ranked as the number 2 team in the country. So there you go. We don't have to worry about Michigan being 3 or 4 and which poll you're going to pick or whatever when Michigan starts the season on the 2nd of September, which is right around the corner. They will be the number 2 team in the nation. And, you know, you're always excited about the start of a Michigan football season. This might be the, most anticipated ever. It sounds crazy to say that, but it's probably true when you sit back and think about it, what people are expecting and what has happened the last couple of years. It's great to be with you here as always, and we got a lot to talk about, including Michigan being number 2 in the AP as well as the coaches. I got a hype train for you. It's going to start out today. Pick a player that's receiving some hype. I might be included in hyping a particular player up, but we'll get to the hype train coming up straight ahead. Also, I looked at the first 3 games for Michigan, the non-conference portion of the schedule, and I have a to-do list, and I will tell you what that list is. Michigan did lose a player over the weekend. We'll touch briefly on that, but we'll start with the news about the head coach and then one of his players. And there you go, Jim Harbaugh. We talked a little bit about the suspension on Friday. Somebody asked about it, and I thought it was going to be reduced. I thought maybe just 1 game. Well, no games is what it came down to, because the deal was off the table, and the suspension deal with Harbaugh and the NCAA broke down. Now, you know, you can sit there and take this one from a lot of different angles. You're a Michigan fan. You're watching this. So if I'm a Michigan fan and I'm watching this and I'm thinking about Jim Harbaugh, he was going to be suspended for 4 games, maybe 2, maybe 1. And now he's not going to be suspended for this upcoming season. That's good news. Having Jim Harbaugh from game 1. Now, I didn't think that it was going to matter if he missed all 4 of those games, which I didn't think was going to be likely. They were going to be okay saying that Harbaugh was going to be able to coach the team through the week, and he just wasn't going to be there on Saturday. But it's not a good appearance. And every game, even if you had the same announcers, they'd be saying the same thing. It'd be the big story. It would be the lead story. Jim Harbaugh not on the sideline. So this season, you're not going to hear that. You don't have to hear that during game day. Maybe during the game, it'll come up like, he's got he was going to be suspended. Who knows what the NCAA is going to do? But so it's off till 24 at the earliest, if it's going to happen, this suspension. So if you're a Michigan football fan, I'll go back to it. I think it's good news. Harbaugh's going to be on the sideline. That is good. Now, I saw Tom Mars, who's Harbaugh's attorney. I didn't put his quotes, but you'll just have to take it from me. The tenor of it was that Mars is like, why is the NCAA running their mouth? I thought there was a gag order. We're not supposed to say anything, and the NCAA saying things under the table to their mouthpieces like Pete Thamel and Dan Wetzel, which he does have a point. Also, you could say that the NCAA might have a point where you go back to Indy and, Jim Harbaugh was asked about the suspension. He said, look, I can't talk about it, which is what you're supposed to say. And you understand that part. But he actually didn't have just nothing to say. He said there's nothing to be ashamed of, which actually is saying something about it. Now, it is parsing words. It is coming out there and saying, look, how many times was he asked? 10 times. And did he say every single time, I can't talk about that because it's the NCAA? No, he didn't. The first thing that he said is like, yeah, I would like to talk about it. I don't have anything to be ashamed about, but I'm not going to talk about it. So he actually did say something about it. Now you can say, that's not that big of a deal. I don't think it's all that big of a deal either. Was that where the NCAA got mad? Because they're like, why is Harbaugh over there? We told him, or he's not supposed to be talking about it. And he did. These kind of things can make people that are in power upset. I think you always, when we deal with the NCAA, increasingly, you would have said this 10 years ago, you would have said this 20 years ago, that, yeah, they're a joke, they're toothless, but, they're there. They do have, they do have a tooth in there. They do have some power. And, they were levying it. They were trying to. And so now it's not there. The good news is it's not going to, I would not think, affect this season at all. Besides random people, rivals, and, other people that just like talking about Harbaugh, it did fill up another segment for them as they're able to talk about it. Certainly they did talk about it. Right up until Indianapolis, it was supposed to be big news. Michigan, one of the top teams in the country, they're not going to have their head coach. Now it's off the table, so now it gets talked about again. You can say, wow, that part's good news. It was never going to be that big of a deal anyways. It's now good news overall for this upcoming season, the way I see it. The couple things where you could say this is a negative part. Just getting it done. Like if they would have agreed to 2 games and, Harbaugh, didn't play nice with them. And so it ended up being 2 games, that would be talked about during those games, but then it'd be water under the bridge. You couldn't go back. Once you got into game 3, it was going to be once the night game for Bowling Green, there was no reason for the announcers to be like, oh, Harbaugh. Well, I guess, they'd say, oh, here he is on the sideline. But then by the time the conference season started, there would be really no reason to bring it up. It would be over with. Now you have this, I don't know whether you think it's going to hang over the head of the program. I don't think that. I mean, Harbaugh is going to be able to handle it. I think the team is going to be able to handle it. You see, how they handled it here. So, is it you'd call a nothing burger, I guess the pun, there is intended. Mostly it is something to talk about. There are the 2 items that I think that you should at least be aware of, and you probably are. Again, if you're a Michigan fan, you have Jim Harbaugh's contract that he was supposed to get a new contract and it was going to be signed, and it never was. And if you're a big Michigan fan, and I see a lot of Michigan fans, they think that he didn't sign his new deal because of the NCAA investigation. You weren't going to, that was the roadblock in him signing this new deal. A lot of Michigan fans felt that way. There's the other side, and I don't know if it's all Michigan. Like, I kind of feel this way. I'm just giving you my honest opinion about it. I think that Harbaugh he wanted to sign a new deal, but he wanted to take off the table the big buyout for the NFL. I think that was a sticking point for him. So he said, no, I'm not going to sign it. And then you had Michigan fans thinking, no, he's not signing it because the NCAA investigation, and Harbaugh may, not be signing it. So he could potentially go to the NFL. That's what I believe. At least and if you're a big Michigan fan, you don't know what you're talking about. Okay, I might not. It does give him options. If he wants that option after this season with a low buyout, it's going to be there. And he can use the NCAA investigation as, it's still out there, as why he isn't signing it. If people are, Harbaugh's as good as gone. Well, no, you could come back and say, no, it's the NCAA investigation. This gives, to me, Harbaugh options. And, do we need to revisit every offseason for the last 3 years? In 2020, coming off the pandemic, I do believe that he wanted a little leverage with the NFL, but nobody was going to give him the time of day. Nobody was kicking the tires. He didn't put his name out there. He was expecting his phone to ring, and apparently it didn't. 2 years ago was the whole Vikings situation. So we do know the interest there. Of course, after the Vikings situation, he said that he was sometimes you can't outdo happy or whatever it is. And, he said he's done. Tell Ward I'm done, interviewing with teams. But then this last year, he talked with both the Panthers and the Broncos. And then, again, coming from a Michigan fan standpoint, a lot of Michigan fans said, oh, no, he didn't really interview with those teams. He was just using it as leverage, for his contract situation. Okay. But, he did just say that he was done doing all that. And then he went out there and talked to two teams. I look at things as, how they appear to me on the surface. I think it was Harbaugh actually during his tenure that said, hey, judge me by my actions. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm looking at the evidence and I'm looking at the actions. I'm looking at a guy who said, no, I'm done. I'm not interviewing anymore. And then he was out there talking to other teams. So people could say and have their opinion about whatever you want. That's mine. With the NCAA, good news for this year. In the long haul, is it good news? I don't know. It gives Harbaugh options. If I'm Harbaugh's agent, if I'm Jim Harbaugh, and I have whatever you think the chances that he would go to the NFL, that it increases with him having a very low buyout, which it does increase his options. He has that. Now, I am going to look at it just from the Michigan football program. What is best for the Michigan football program is that if Jim Harbaugh stays around, that's what's best. So I understand why people are saying that the NFL doesn't want him. I think they're wishful thinking like that. I happen to think that they, really could. I could easily, come up with, a bunch of reasons and examples. Of course, there's a lot of reasons and examples with how many times he's been passed over and everything. So that ongoing saga, it's still there. It is best for Michigan football if he signs a contract with a big buyout and that there's not going to be any chance of any NFL team, but it's there. And if it means, Harbaugh in Michigan has a great year and then you have to deal with January or February Harbaugh again, which we did last year and which we have for at least the last 2 years, well, that's just a price that you have to pay. That's the way I look at it. And I hope that he stays with the Michigan football program. There's, the program's not bigger. One person, even a coach like Harbaugh, is not bigger than a program. One player certainly is not. But one of the very most, I don't say the most important. I was going to say one of the very most important. It is one of the very most important. I think it's the most important thing in college football is who your head coach is. So Michigan right now has a top 5 for sure head coach in college football. And this season is setting up where I don't think he's going to fall out of the top 5. So you want him to stay around. So that's a long-winded way of going around talking about Harbaugh and the situation. Good news in the short term. We don't know about the long term, but it also could end up playing out where it's no big deal anywhere around. And, with the suspension of next year, they could all just go away. There could just be a fine, which I would just be fine with. Now, let me take some feedback on this. Not everybody, I don't expect everybody just to listen to what I have to say and say, oh, yeah, he's right on. Oh, boy, he's nailed it. Again, nailed it. Everything that it comes down to Harbaugh and Michigan, 50 and just nails it. I don't expect that. So let's see where the people are at. Mark comes in first up, and he says Penn State says Jim Harbaugh turned down Denver, the head coach, which makes my 2 years ago NFL plan look possible. Surely Jim Harbaugh wants his successor fully groomed to get a running start from third base, not what he had. Well, I could probably talk 20 minutes about this particular sentence. There's a lot of sentences. There's a bunch of stuff going on here. I think this meant Penn State. I don't know who Eric Pate says Penn State. Penn State, like what? Officially, they put a release out. One of their, writers, somebody that works on a site like this, a YouTube guy. Penn State. He talked with the Denver Broncos. He had an interview with them. He Zoomed with them. So I don't, did he actually get offered the job? I don't know if he ever expressed his interest in that interview. So this particular sentence is interesting, all over, because I don't know, who at Penn State, the university says that seems odd. And also the turning down, we do know that there was an interview there. So I don't know about, being offered the job or anything else. Your own prediction that he was going to 2 years ago after he was it fell apart with the Vikings, that eventually then in 2 years he was going to go. Okay, that seemed like I was going to say reasonable. I understand that. Like, he expressed his interest in the NFL, but right after he was done with the Vikings, I was going to take him at his word. He said he's done. He's not interested in the NFL anymore. He told Ward Manuel, this will not be a reoccurring theme. If that's not the exact way that he said it, that is damn close. So after I heard that, I said, you know what? This is done. He scratched that itch. He got in there. He was that close. And for those of you that are listening to the pod, I have my finger about an inch. He was close, to leaving 2 years ago. So, you're saying that he wanted a successor fully groomed. I mean, okay, you could already make a case that he was going to 2 years ago. But you're talking about like the cupboard was bare when he took over, which is not true at all. There was a lot of talent. Part of why he was able to have success, talking about Harbaugh in 2015, is that the cupboard was not bare. There were plenty of players left over from Brady Hoke. So there's a lot of stuff in there, Mark, and maybe I took too long on it, but I just wanted to get into a little bit of that. You're weighing in. Gary says it's a happy Mason Blue review to all. Go Blue. I like it. Richard likes the news. No suspensions. No penalties. Let's go. Jason, who is always in a good mood, what I have noticed, the same thing with Mr. Johnson, who's got the Michigan's ready to go. But Mr. Johnson weighing in on the NCAA. He says, who cares what the emperor with no clothes does? Like the NCAA likes to pick and choose who they get mad at. They're too inconsistent on their rulings to take them serious. Well, I think a lot of people will read that and they'll shake their head in a positive fashion when you're talking about that. But the NCAA, even if they do like to pick and choose, this time around they did pick and choose Harbaugh, and because they had some evidence to like when it comes down to like you would think the big level one that everybody cares about, like Michigan fans for sure, players getting paid. It's very hard to enforce that, even when you have like mounds of circumstantial evidence. You can have a guy on his Instagram being like, I just got paid. And then, the NCAA will call and say, you just said you got paid by Florida. He's like, I was just joking. I didn't really get paid. So, unless you have like, you're seeing money go, like, so it's very hard. But so it's a difficult situation, and it's very easy to just blast away at the NCAA. And I think, you don't take them serious, except that they can affect your football team. Like you're saying, who cares, and who cares who they pick and choose with? But there could be more than a fine. Like I wouldn't care about a fine, but maybe they'll pass it along to the season ticket holders. They'll pass it along somehow. So maybe you should care. Maybe you as a taxpayer should care if Michigan is going to get fined by the NCAA. But like if they get recruiting visits or, like those are kind of things that happen when, you have the NCAA involved and you get dinged, scholarships or whatever. Those are going to be, you're going to feel like those are going to be like, semi-big things. They could be. So I hear what you're saying, but I'm not really sure. Michael says the rivals didn't say much. They don't like the NCAA infractions people either. Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess it depends who you listen to or you read. I think every person that follows college football had something to say about Jim Harbaugh being suspended. And it ranged from, the NCAA, they really can't do anything. And yet, here's Harbaugh is going to get suspended for a couple games probably not going to be a big deal because they don't play anybody, to Harbaugh is a big fat cheater and a hypocrite, probably from a lot of those rivals and everything in between, that. So I'm going to have to disagree with that one. I guess, just rivals, but I don't know. I guess, again, it's depending. Every single person weighed in on it. So, no, nobody likes the NCAA, but everybody had something to say about it. OT says the only power the NCAA has is the power people in the North give them. The NCAA has zero power in the South. Harbaugh shouldn't give an inch. Well, OT, that's the game he's playing. Like, they had him, whether you want to say red-handed or whatever kind of evidence that they had, and Harbaugh was like, nah, I don't remember any of that stuff. And then, however else it got out there that, the fan base is like, well, really what he did just play is for a couple hamburgers, and that's what everybody has run with. And so, he hasn't given an inch. So you like exactly the way Harbaugh has played it. I don't like things to linger around there, and it's out. I like resolution with some of this. If it came down to a game, would not have been a big deal to me because it would have been over. 2 games would have been a big deal. I never thought it was going to be 4 games, but even if it was 4 games, I didn't think that was that big of a deal because you were able to get it over with. Now it's just out there. And so there it is. Number 1 on Facebook, Glenn. It's always in for some Michigan talk. JP saying, punish or don't punish. It's like asking my wife what she wants for dinner. I have to wait a year for an answer. I like the analogy. Detroit. We have to accept that Jim Harbaugh really wants to end his career as an NFL coach. That itch of getting to the Super Bowl still gets to him. Plus, he sees with his ex-team, the 49ers, win with his football philosophy. I don't know if you have to accept it because he might not end up getting that chance. I mean, he continues to get older. There's a lot of variables in how this works. Anybody that's sitting here and, you're supposed to, like when you're in a position like me, talk really definitively, like Jim Harbaugh is never going to the NFL. He has had his chances. It is over. He is staying at Michigan. Or you could say, obviously, Jim Harbaugh, like you're saying, is out of here the first chance that he gets. He's had his hand on the leg of the NFL every offseason. He damn near took the Vikings job. Then he said he was done. And then he was over there interviewing twice last year. Look at the contract. Look at the buyout. He's as good as gone. Now, where is it? I do believe myself that I think like Sean Payton, who's the exact same age, almost exactly the same age as Jim Harbaugh. If a guy like Sean Payton has success and turns around, which looks like the worst situation in all of football, you don't think other NFL teams are going to be sitting there going, 69-year-old coach or 59-year-old coach, sorry, with all that success, comes right back in and look at that coach. Look at Harbaugh. Yeah, there's going to be some interest. I think that's not the only thing, but that could help a team. Harbaugh not doing it once or twice, the college football playoffs, but then a third time, which we all think is very possible, is going to have NFL teams saying, well, look at that little run he had at San Francisco. It took him a minute, but look at what he did at Michigan. I could easily see an NFL team, taking a run at him. So I don't know if we have to accept that he really wants to. I think that the way I would put it to you is that Jim Harbaugh wants to have his options open, where, the thing about college, and, you could say Jim Harbaugh loves college, and I think he loves a lot. I think he loves coaching. I think he loves his coaches. I think he loves Ann Arbor. I think his wife really likes Ann Arbor. I think his kids are happy here. I think his mom and dad, right there. I think all of that he really likes. I don't know. And, Michigan has a new president and, the athletic director. You always have to work with, there are people that you have to deal with. And at universities, politics come into play. And Harbaugh's track record, I don't know if it's fair to say that, he gets burned out in a situation and just doesn't deal with his superiors. I don't know. Like, people say that about him. And San Francisco, it really seemed to be true. Like, there was a lot of hard feelings with a lot of people. You got gigantic egos going on. And so when you get to school and you see a lot of parts that are moving there. So Harbaugh having a particular option for himself. And just like these recruits, they like to go visit and, have a carpet rolled out for them and everything else. Would Harbaugh this year really enjoy after, he was almost at the top of the mountain in the NFL and then went to college and then it looked like, that nobody would want him. Now here he is back, having that. I think that I'll try to boil it down. I think that Harbaugh likes having the option of potentially going to the NFL after this year. And if you don't think so, or if you think he's good as gone, I respect both of those opinions. I'm just saying that's where I'm at with mine. The options. The original saying, yeah, maybe he'll just tell the NCAA to stick it. And, that's why he's going to get out of here. Because he could be so, I think in Harbaugh's mind, like the infractions that Michigan did commit are just small little nothings compared to what is going on that the NCAA doesn't do anything about. And I think Harbaugh might think those things are shameful. What he has done is not shameful, but what other teams are doing, they are shameful. You could come to the plate and say, look, cheating is cheating. Michigan, you guys acting like Michigan is squeaky clean. I'm not acting that way. But if there is one thing that I think all of us can agree on is that Michigan as an institution, as a athletic department, as specifically a football program, they think that paying players to come to the school is like murder. It's the worst thing that could, in competition type parlance. It's you can't have anything worse. There is nothing. It is the ultimate sin to commit money and promises to a player to get to go to your university. Now, does it matter that every other team in the country, or certainly all the teams that are in the top 25, certainly all the teams that are in the top 25 in the South, that they don't care and that their fans don't care at all, and that they don't care that the NCAA can't do anything about it, and you can't really do anything about it? It's easy to say, look, TV's getting billions. The coaches are getting, tens of millions. Who cares if the players are getting money? Nobody cares. Nobody cares except, Michigan cares a great deal about that. So like they feel like that is the worst possible thing that could ever happen. If they're watching some video or contacting kids or sending texts off peak hours when they're not supposed to, those are nothings, according to Michigan. So however you want to feel about it, you can go through it, and it comes back again to, it plays really well with Michigan fans because I'll see if somebody does it. You'll just throw the ethics card out there. Michigan has ethics. Well, their fans believe that. And so I believe that some of that is true. I think that it is ethics and, it is, I think it's part of it. I also think it's part of it is that it's a plan and that the fans like it. And, they've got another plan and they haven't had to go down that road yet. I don't think. And so, that's where it's at for me. I spend a lot of time on this, but I like people that take the time and send feedback on these things. I wouldn't mind having a burger myself. Antoine says if Harbaugh leaves Michigan football, the infrastructure as far as coaches are in place. It's true. Sure. But I don't know if there's somebody that's a bigger fan of Sharon Moore than me. I have been his biggest fan from the first day that I saw him and heard him talk. I said, that guy's a head coach. But Sharon, when maybe he would end up being a great coach. Jim Harbaugh is a great coach. I don't know what the learning curve is if Sharon Moore, would be end up being a top 10 coach, immediately in a couple years, whatever, there's some unknown there. So if you're asking me, would I rather have Jim I don't think if let's just suppose Jim Harbaugh left the next day, they'd be sitting over here, everything's fine. Everything's good. Harbaugh's left everything in great. Everything's good. Michigan will continue. I don't know about that. The punters, talking about the NCAA being a paper tiger and its impotence needs increased publicity. This situation is just another example of the NCAA lacking leverage. But let's not act like this is a big W for Jim. Yeah, it's not a big W. You're right. You're right. I don't think that the NCAA wants him out. I mean, I think it's the opposite. I mean, NCAA, I think they can't do anything. They try to enforce some rules, but they can't make anything stick. And usually when they do get something to stick, the perpetrators are long gone. They've been fired by the university. The players are already in the pros. This is one of those. It's not a unique situation because there's some others that happen like this in basketball, like Bill Self. The coach is still here. The NCAA, what's good for business? When Michigan's good. Having a blue blood, having success is good. So Jim Harbaugh is good. The NCAA I think that they know that they don't want to enforce any rules about one of the blue bloods and Jim Harbaugh. I think they're frustrated because Jim Harbaugh told them to go stick it. Talking to the NFL was used as leverage for him and his staff and his salaries. Maybe, Steve, but it happened at the mercy of, at the expense, I should say, of not holding up to his word to the fans. Like, and if you say, "Oh, I'm not good. I don't care," he didn't. He said he wasn't going to talk to the NFL anymore. That he was done. Tell Ward I'm done with that. Those were his words, not mine. And so that's business. That's a funny way. I'll just say it's a funny way as a fan. Look, you're not the only one. Most Michigan fans, I like dealing with them. I deal with them on the Maize and Blue Review. They feel like the same way you is. Oh, that's just Jim. That's just big, high leverage. That's the way to play the game. Okay. All right. You could feel that way. Like, so why ever give your word that you're never going to do anything? Maybe he should have said, look, tell Ward I'll never do this again unless I need a little leverage for my coaches. I mean, what? That's true. All right, let's take a couple here. I guess I'm all hour. I got a bunch of things to talk about. And I'm here. Wolverines fan too, saying spare me with gag orders and is this a criminal investigation? He's talking about cheeseburgers and helping kids. Yeah, it's a little bit more, so these are the extremes where people go, Wolverine fan too. No, it's not a criminal investigation, but it's more than, the fact that it was buying food for players that you weren't supposed to have contact with during a pandemic. So, I mean, it's not a big deal to me. That's fine. It was just a Zoom call when you weren't supposed to, being able to do it. You weren't supposed to do that. That was part of the rules. And then, the texting. This was also like, there's dead periods. You're not supposed to be contacting players. Michigan did it. So let's just stay with exactly what it was. Anybody that just lays out that it's just, you're a fan. You even say it. Wolverine fan too. And then you're putting the little extra analyst, coaching. Yeah. It was against the rules. And, and now it's not, which is a fine thing to say. But, like, break any rules you want because you think down the line there are not going to be any rules anyways. I mean, look, I think the way to look at it is it's not as big of a deal like a lot of people that make it, but it's a bigger deal than most of the Michigan fans think. So, that's where we're at with it. Who do I think steps up the most in the receiving room? Well, I got something for that coming up straight ahead for you. James asking if I'm going to any games this year. I haven't made any plans about going to any games because afterwards I do the podcast, but I've also thought about, hey, why don't I call a restaurant or a bar in and around Ann Arbor? Maybe I do a post game. And then, maybe, there's tickets. Last year my brother-in-law was like, hey, I got some tickets. And I was like, no. For 30 years, I went to so many games, almost every, and now, I haven't. So I don't know, James, I'm going to say maybe. I am targeting the game next year against Texas. I do want to go to that game. So that's it. That's where I'm at. All right. JVB wants to know who the OSU and MSU starting quarterbacks are. The MSU starting quarterback is Kim. I believe Noah Kim is his name. OSU, I guess there was breaking news today where first base came out and said he didn't know who's going to start, and they're going to take it into a la Michigan. He didn't say that. They're going to have the competition go into the regular season. So they don't know if it's going to be who it's going to be yet. It reminds me of '97 where they had Stanley Jackson and Joe Germain, and they ended up playing them both. Joe's going to start, Jack's going to play. That was the line by Cooper, and then he flipped it, and he flipped it against Michigan, and it didn't work. So hopefully it blows up for them. All right. So, yeah, I have spent longer than I thought. Well, last one is from Mark, who says we're not innocent, but it's not a crime. Can he decide what are the really important rules and the ones that are, say, morally questionable? Can he? Well, that's a good way to put it. That's it. He can. He has done that. He is, I believe, Mark, it's a good way to put it. Jim Harbaugh's looked at some of the rules where he can go into the gray areas and push the envelope. It's not that big of a deal. That's competition. That's getting it done. I think that's how he feels. But then there's other ones that say, oh, that is part of the 10 commandments at Michigan that we will just not break. And actually, it's just one commandment. Thou shalt not pay recruits money to induce them to go to your university, even if others are. That's it. All right. Now, that's Harbaugh, who said, I can't talk about this at all, but then added, there's nothing to be ashamed of. So he did talk about it. But that's water under the bridge. He's good to go. Maybe we don't have to talk about it till next year. Maybe we don't have to talk about it at all. Let's go to Donovan Edwards, who made some news, and a lot of people talked about it this week. I thought about talking about it last week, but I just said, well, let's see if it comes up again. And a lot of people talked about it in a critical way. So Donovan Edwards, to Pro Football Focus, he was quoted as, and I'll read the quote to you. Quote, I will go down as one of the greatest running backs to ever play the game. I'll be up there with Walter Payton and Barry Sanders. Now, look, I love Donovan Edwards. I think that he could be the best running back on the Michigan team, which means I think he could be the best running back in the country. And I also think towards the NFL that he could be the first pick out of all the running backs in the country next year and could be a first rounder. So I'm as high as you could possibly get on Donovan Edwards. Do I like a player having supreme confidence in himself that he could be one of the greatest running backs of all time? I do like that. If you're not going to have confidence, who else is? But if I could have talked with Donovan Edwards, if he would have said, look, I'm going to say that I believe I'm going to be, greater than Barry Sanders and Walter Payton. I'll be up there. If he said that, I'd say, Yeah, how about say it like this, Donovan? Say that you hope to one day be as great as Barry Sanders or Walter Payton. Talking about I already am or I'm great, you know, just word it a little bit differently. That's what I would have said to him. But, he apparently did not contact me and ask me about, what to say. And so he just went out there and said that. And so there are people like, hey, you know what? There's people that don't like it. Understandable. Now, people that are outside of Michigan, you understand. Like if I saw somebody else who, any player in college, if it was Caleb Williams, who won the Heisman Trophy last year, if he came out and said, you know what, I'm going to win more Super Bowls than Tom Brady, I'm going to be greater than Joe Montana. If he said that, I'd be like, all right, how about back off of like I'm the greatest of all time talk. And so that's what Edwards did. But so you get all the wild takes, people that aren't Michigan fans, but then even Michigan fans, do you like a braggadocious? Do you like somebody out there? I'm the greatest. Not really, And like I said, I would rather take a different approach with that if I was able to talk with Donovan Edwards. Now, like, I think that he is a very special talent. Am I going to go crazy about him? Like, and again, we ask a lot. We want these players to talk, and then they do say something, and then we get all over. What are you talking about? You can't hold a candle to Walter Payton. I don't know. Barry Sanders wasn't just a great running back in the NFL. He was like 2,000 yards. He was great. I mean, let's back off. You just want to be the best. But so, it's not that big of a deal. Again, here, he's a young guy. Just like he made a mistake in retweeting Kanye, and then he brought that back up last week to kind of clarify where he was at. And, I thought that was a nice move by him. Maybe there'll be a point where he talks again and says, what I was saying is that, I'm really confident. I love those two guys. Those are my favorite backs. I'm hoping that I can be as great as those guys. And that's all he would have to do. I don't know if he'll do that, but maybe he would. Look, he came back and brought up the whole thing about the Kanye tweet again, unprompted. So, maybe he'll hear a little of this backlash and, not as big of a deal as the other one. I don't even know if it's a big deal at all, but that's it. That's it with Donovan Edwards. Again, on the scale of gigantic news, whatever. Did Michigan used to pay players in the 90s? Not to my knowledge, unless we're talking about basketball players. Basketball players did get paid, but they were already at the university. And Jack, I think that says a lot to where Michigan's identity and their philosophy and their culture is, and why they die on this hill of, we don't care if we're going to get caught. We don't care if everybody else is doing it. We are not. Because a lot of people were embarrassed about the Fab Five and Ed Martin and the whole scandal and the de facto probation. And a lot of, people called them blues, old blues. It was really, big donors who were like, look, we love Michigan, but we want them to win the right way. We don't want, hundreds of thousands of dollars going into a player's pocket, like Chris Webber. And so a lot of that continues into the dialogue today. And if you're not old enough, and it's all like, hey, Fat Five's great, everything. It wasn't all great. The Ed Martin scandal was not great. And I think it still has the reverberations are still felt today. But I don't think football, as far as I know. I don't know what that means. The punters is talking about Keegan and Zinter in a recent interview, say they think Moore can do the job if Harbaugh leaves. Two offensive linemen talking about their position coach would do a good job as a head coach. Well, I'm glad that they would say that. I would expect those guys to say that. I wouldn't expect them to say, oh, Moore, woo, no, he'll poop his big boy pants. No, I wouldn't expect them to say that. And look, I would say, so I did say the first time I saw Sharon Moore talk, he has that special talent to captivate a room. I thought, well, this guy could be a CEO. This guy, then I would hear, I was asking, about how he's a recruiter. He's a great recruiter. He is great one-on-one in a room with a kid, being able to talk to him about, what it means to, so all of the things, he checks all of the boxes that way. So he could be a fine head coach. And if Harbaugh 2 years ago would have left to be the Vikings head coach, Sharon Moore would have been your head coach. That much we know. Let's see what if anybody had anything to say about the Don, the one-armed bandit. Let's see who will be the top point earner. I'll go with Blake Corum. James is going to the first 3 games this year, and then hopefully the Ohio State game. Those are a good 4. Going back over, looking at some of the records. Montrell saying Edwards has been the best back at Michigan since his freshman year. Well, I guess whatever your definition of best back. Now, if you'd have said you think he's been the most talented back since his freshman year, I think you could get some people to agree with you. But the way that Hassan Haskins ran the ball in his freshman year, if Edwards was the best back, do you think he should have played in front of Hassan Haskins? No, Montrell, you don't think that. Do you think he should have played it in front of Blake Corum 2 years ago? No, you don't. Blake Corum was a great 1-2 punch with Hassan Haskins. Do you think that he was a better back than Blake Corum last year? Again, you might think he's more talented, but Blake Corum started until he was hurt and rang up all those yards with 3rd, 4th in the country, all those TDs, and could have won the Heisman Trophy if he didn't get hurt. If he would have won the Heisman Trophy, would you be saying, well, Edwards is a better back? I don't know. I get what you're saying. And now, if you're telling me you think he might go higher in the draft because of his versatility and speed, I think you get a point there. But I don't know. However, you're judging best back. I mean, I'm going to have to disagree with that one. How does Dono's quote different than JJ wanting to have more rings than Brady? I didn't actually see JJ talking about Tom Brady. But if it's exactly what you're saying here, first of all, you got to remember what the question was or whatever. But if JJ just said, hey, I want to win more Super Bowls than Tom Brady, yeah, nobody's going to say anything about that. Donovan Edwards said, I'm great. What did he say? Let me see the quote. I will go down as one of the greatest running backs to ever play the game. I'll be up there with Walter Payton and Barry Sanders. I don't know. You don't know the difference? Than saying you want to then declaring. If JJ said, Tom Brady, I'm already a better college quarterback than that guy. I'll be a better pro than him. I'll be a better runner than Lamar Jackson. I'll be a better thrower than Joe Montana, and I'll win more championships than Tom Brady. That's when you would put JJ in the, okay, JJ, take it out. Take it down maybe a little bit, but hey, that's it. That's where we're at. Okay. Right. That's how, to me, it's different. All right. Let's get to some other things. I want to tell everybody, you want to know about what's going on in practice. The game, September the 2nd, practice is going on right now over at the Maize and Blue Review. I see practice reports. I see about players that are standing out in practice. They're talking about practice, not the games, but how things have been going in practice, in a scrimmage on the Maize and Blue Review. Join up today at michigan.rivals.com. Recruiting, the transfer portal, it's there for you. Get in there. And while I have you for a minute, if you subscribe on YouTube, thanks very much, all of you, with the feedback. You take your time, you come into the show. I'm very grateful that you all do that. Thank you very much. If you subscribe to the YouTube and you have not to the podcast, you say, I don't listen to the podcast, please do it anyways. We're looking for those numbers to get a little boost as we get into fall and try to do some different things, maybe outside in Ann Arbor, so we can point to some of those numbers. And if you're somebody that's listening on the podcast, do the same thing on the YouTube. You say, I don't watch the YouTube. Do it anyways. If it helps out. It's just like leaving. I appreciate the 5-star reviews that are given, but if you could get in there and leave a comment and a review and hit that 5-star, it helps us out immensely. It does take a little time. I don't know. You could probably done it in a minute. I like the Maize and Blue, except I think he talks too much about Harbaugh. I want a cheeseburger. Hit the 5-star. You're good to go. But I would appreciate any help that you can give me there. All right. There comes the train. I talk about him an awful lot. I think if I asked you who you thought I was going to put on the hype train, you would say, I think you're going to put Roman Wilson on the hype train, and you would be absolutely correct. Roman Wilson on the hype train. I've got him right there driving the train, or maybe I'm over here. Maybe he is riding shotgun, and I'm actually over there driving the train. But the answer to somebody's question about who's going to step up as a wide receiver, I think Roman Wilson is going to step up. I think that there could have been a few catches last year that if JJ would have put on him, that people would be talking about him differently. I've heard people say Michigan has an average receiving core. And I know when you look at the recruiting rankings and you look at players and where wideouts have been drafted, I understand all that. I do think that Roman Wilson is better than average. And I think that, he could get the double-digit touchdowns this year. I think he could put himself in position to, be drafted as early as the second round. I don't like, making projections like, sure, everybody has their best year, but I think that's the kind of ceiling he has. Obviously, he's fast. Needs to, stay healthy. All players do, but he's been banged up a little bit. He's not the biggest guy, but I'm putting Roman Wilson number one on the hype train. There he is. Ring the bell. Roman Wilson. And by the way, Roman Wilson is from the state of Hawaii. Very interesting story. I haven't read all. I'd like to read even more about and talk to Roman Wilson. Thanks to Jason one day, who had, I believe, Roman Wilson, who showed up in the feedback to say hi. It was great to see Roman Wilson show up. But he is from Hawaii. I remember reading, I think it was from the Daily, about wherever he was. I don't know the Hawaii islands great, my geography of them, but wherever Roman grew up, he not only took a bus to another school that was farther away for his football career, he took a plane. He flew from one island to another to go to high school. I don't know, how prevalent all that is, hey, puddle jumper or whatever, jumping on a plane, just like kind of taking the subway in New York. I don't know, or taking an Uber around here. Maybe that's true, but I was like, wow, man. You think about people that are dedicated. I remember, growing up reading about Isaiah Thomas, the great Piston, who did a similar type thing wherever he was, wherever he grew up in Chicago. He had to take the train all the way to go to a different school, hours, to instead of, right around the corner, that kind of thing. Blake Corum has that kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if all of these guys have some kind of story like they rode 3 hours before school, going to the gym, working out. These guys were getting everything done even before first hour. I think Blake Corum is that way. Roman Wilson. If you have a chance, you can look up Roman Wilson's social media. Roman, like all of us, were shocked at the wind fires that were over in Hawaii, and dozens of people dying. And Roman has something set up, as a relief fund. And so, if that's something that interests you, check that out. Our hearts and our thoughts are with you there, Roman. Okay, let's look for a little more feedback. That's the first on the feedback when it comes down to the hype train. People getting, sometimes, yeah, there it is. Let's go. It's good to see CG72. Got that rose with Charles Woodson, one of my favorite pictures of all time. I wish I was out on that field after 97. Look, if you look really close, no. Yeah, actually, I wasn't anywhere close to Woodson. I thought about, after that game, staying out on the field, running around and celebrating. But there was a post game to be set up over at then the Chrysler Arena. And working for the radio station in Ann Arbor, we didn't always have the greatest equipment. And so I liked, even though I set it up beforehand and checked it, I like to set it up beforehand. So I could have pushed the envelope. Woo! Here's some pictures. Maybe I could have been out there with Woodson. Maybe I could have had a rose. Who knows? Would have been awesome. But instead, I went in to be a professional, get that equipment going. And we got those press conferences. I don't know why I'm giving myself a pat on the back for that. CG72 wants to bring back Braylon Edwards. I want to tell you, CG, the first time that I saw Darius Clemens was last year during the spring game. He was in early. And working out on the field, I saw him just down on the field, running a few routes, not even going, 3/4 speeds, running routes. I watched him. There he is. He ran another route, came back through it. After like 3 or 4, I said, you know what? He reminds me of Braylon Edwards. He's built like Braylon Edwards. He runs like Braylon Edwards. And when he was catching the ball out there, just 3/4 speed at the spring game last year, he looked like Braylon Edwards. So you want Braylon Edwards? You might get Braylon Edwards. I don't think this is true, that Michigan fans resent skill players. Not every great player will be a great coach. I'm not sure what that is. That might be talking with somebody that else is on the feed there, which I'm not sure of. All right, I have 3 things. Let me check something here. I got some messages. Maybe there's some breaking practice news or something that I should know about. Okay. There's not. Let's get to the to-do list for the non-conference season. Anytime you put a to-do list, you start talking about, hey, what do you want, to win? It goes without saying, and then I could have just gone to something else, but I'm putting it up here anyways. I mean, the real point of these games is to go out there and get the W's, even though everybody knows that. So the to-do list, number 1 for the non-conference slate, get number 990, 90, 991, and 992. We can all agree on that. Get those W's. All right, to-do list number 2 for the non-conference season. Let's get JJ sharp. I want to see the OSU JJ. I would like to see the first drive at Iowa JJ. That's the JJ McCarthy that I want to see. The McCarthy who threw that ball to Cornelius Johnson, the one to start the second half that he threw to Colston Loveland. That is the McCarthy, the one that ran it in the second half from the 3-yard line down in the horseshoe, the one that played an exceptional second half and the majority of the second quarter and the second half at OSU. I want to see that J.J. McCarthy from the jump. Speaking of J.J. McCarthy, I have his Instagram that I wanted to show you. I believe it's his girlfriend he is in an Instagram with, and he's got a shirt with his name, image, and likeness coming out. And for that, I am going to show you. I just have to click it up here. Here it is right now. Here he's got his little, I'll break it down for you. There's the smiley face, and here's the beginning of this McCarthy video.
Receivers out to the right. He's going to keep it himself. Yeah. McCarthy, great move. Accelerates.
That's Baka. He's a no long talker.
He's meditating.
Motherfucking text slam.
Oh.
We don't need to hear about the next man. Dudes talk down and they get red. Left them get dipped from the whole ends. If Gilla call shots, no question.
I didn't listen to the music. With his girlfriend, literally, all the football around. And here's the shirt, and it says Ann Arbor. I saw him wearing it out the golf course when he was doing the interview. And he's spinning around, side-arming some footballs, 360 some footballs. Here he is sitting under the bench with his girl, and August the 18th, so that's coming up. And the proceeds are going to...
Three receivers out to the right. He's going to keep it himself.
Yeah.
All of that. And if you look at his list here, Alex Orgy calls it his third drippy dude.
We don't need to hear about the next man. Dudes talk down and they get ran. Let them get dipped from the whole end. If Killer call shots, no questions.
G wait till I'm want to be sharp for those 3 games. That means everything, but it's
better talk nice.
It's not conference games if you do well. It's kind of like no-win situation.
And I'm not nice.
Win all those games to nothing. But, and if JJ plays well, it's like, oh, it's just no. Let's you are able to take it and look at each game, and you understand that it's not down at Ohio State or it's not at Penn State. We understand it's North Carolina. It's like it's Bowling Green, and it's Philadelphia. We all know that. Well, you do have to, I think, tell people at times, like, we understand that. But you would still like to see him be sharp and be that JJ that was on point and against OSU, and certainly that first drive against Iowa. There's a lot of other games that you could point to as well. A couple other things on the to-do list. I would like to see Sharon Moore was taking over as the offensive coordinator solely. He was the co-offensive coordinator last year, but he's calling the plays now. And Sharon Moore is also the offensive line coach. So he's got a lot going on, and he was this close to being the head coach at Michigan. So, everybody loves Sharon Moore, and he's on top of the world at Michigan right now. And I think that Michigan's going to have the number 1 offense in the country. So through those first 3 games, what I would like to see Sharon Moore do is get this offense humming and get them ready for Big Ten play. He doesn't have to win he doesn't have to put 60 points up there. But it's going to be a vibe, really. Is he spreading the football around? Does the offensive line look dominant? Does JJ look sharp? Are the wide receivers? Are they all getting their taste? Are the running backs eating? Are they getting the depth in there? Are you able to do all of those things that you would like to if you were just saying, hey, what would you like to see from the offense? You'd like to see everything. A dominating offensive line, a sharp JJ, a host of different running backs, and then the ball spread out there where everybody eats. Get that thing humming and get that temperature ready to race once the conference season starts. That's what I want to see from Sharon Moore. It's a little bit like that, generally speaking, with the defense of what I want to see in the non-conference slate. I would like to see them play fast, and I'd like to see Jesse Minter get a solid 2 deep established. Now, that's not very specific to any players or anything else. I understand that. And I think you're going to be able to use certainly those first 2 games where you're going to see a lot of different guys. And then that 3rd game, I think you'll have a more solidified 2 deep, like that would actually be the opener in some other year. So you get all that and just get them going, but fast. If I could just use one word every year, like, hey, what do you want to see from the defense? I want to see a fast defense. I saw that when they went down to Dallas and played they play Florida in that game? They played Florida in that opener, and they beat them. They look fast, the defense. I remember Devin Bush, spilling into I'm like, that guy looks fast. Of course, 97, when I saw him against Colorado. I remember these guys look fast. I'd like to see Michigan look really fast in those first 3 games. So that's it. Let's take some of the feedback here. There you go. One of Jason's 3 X factors, Coach Moore. See, I'm right there with you. Mark says 2 and 3 go hand in hand. That was the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator. I'm with you. Mark wants to know what I really think of the development of the wide receiver. That group seems poorest in being coached, and it's a very technical skill. Well, I don't know why you would say that they seem to be the poorest coach. They seem like they do not seem like that to me. Now, they don't get the ball as much as so they don't get the volume as maybe some other wide receivers. So maybe because you're looking at the stats, Mark, are you looking at the way they get off the line and you're thinking that no, technically they're not sound that way? I do know specifically, I'm not looking for you to, answer your question for you on what you're looking for, because I don't believe this. Like there's, a member here that gets in always is talking about the route trees are lacking. I don't think that myself. So I think that Ron Bellamy's an excellent coach, somebody who played the position, who understands all of those kind of things when you get out of the break and all of that. So what do I really think of the development of the wide receivers? Well, I think that Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson, and I'll put Colston Loveland in there. He's essentially a wide receiver. That is a good enough group, an above average group, to win a national championship and to make enough plays through the air that they can win a national championship with those 3 guys leading the way. That's what I think of them. Now, I don't know about Darius Clemens. I don't know about Tyler Morris. Tyler Morris made the big catch on 3rd down last year against Rutgers. That was big. He's a year removed again. It was a senior. He hurt his knee. So you would think that he, could play his best football now. And, Clemens, who physically, when I said he looked like Braylon Edwards, he looked like he could play in the NFL when I saw him in the spring game 2 years ago. Physically, you look at his 40 times, everything that is there. So if I'm expecting some, development from those guys. Peyton O'Leary's a little bit of a wild card. He looked really good in the spring game. He's earned a scholarship. Those aren't, everything out there, but there's something, and he is a card that you could potentially play. And then they got 3 freshmen. And we know of Samaj Morgan, who is in the state of Michigan. We did see the young man, Frederick Moore, out of St. Louis, who I keep saying, I saw him in the spring. Yeah, we did see him in the spring game. He was out there. And then Carmelo English was the highest rated of the wide receivers. Let's see. What do I think? I think that the wide receivers are overshadowed by the running game, by the offensive line, and by the quarterback, who, is mostly been handing off. So I think that it is by, just a volume situation where people have opinions like you. It's one that I just don't agree with. And, Antoine wants a lot more complex routes and everything else. Me, I think they're okay that way. You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see the quarterback put the ball on him. I'd like to see him catch it. I know that sounds pretty simplistic, and, you're looking for a lot more, schematics, or, you watch the game. I think they need a quarterback to put the ball on him, and I think they need to haul it in. That's what I'm at. And I know, Antoine, you want more complex routes. You want to see, route trees that are more complex. You could be right. I'm not saying that, like you're an idiot or anything. I'm just saying that I don't agree with you. We don't have to agree on every single thing. That's it. Okay, Mark, do I think Tuttle can shine like Penix did leaving Indiana? No. No, I don't. Penix shined at Indiana. I don't know if Penix right off the bat was amazing. He spun the ball where when he was a freshman, you thought, that guy's going to be in the pros. Look at him. That guy's an exceptional quarterback. He looks like Mark Brunell. He is awesome. What a cannon that guy has. Pro prospect right off the bat. And then he got hurt. And then it looked like he lost it at Indiana. I think it was because of the injury. So, Penix was great right away throwing the ball. Led Indiana to an exceptional season for them. And then whatever happened, the injury took a step back, whether it was the offense or whatever else. But, Penix has always been good. There was no, because he left. Now, he was very good at Washington. I think it was because he was 100%. That's what I'm thinking. At least that's where I'm at. Let's see. Yes, you have been complaining about it. Wolverine fan, I'm right with you here. JJ needs to hit more long passes. That alone would have put him around 30 TDs. Yeah. If I would look, I'm thinking about, was there any big drops or whatever. JJ missed a couple of long shots, as you talk about Wolverine too. And then I also think that it was Andrell Anthony in that Illinois game. JJ put one right down on the goal line, or I don't know, 2 or 3 yard line to him. Exceptional pass, and he dropped it. And maybe against Rutgers down the seam, I don't know. Amarian Walker had one. Maybe he could have had it. Kojo maybe down the seam on the other side. Maybe he could have had that one. So I don't know if those were routes or if it was on the quarterback with those two, but maybe that's to Antoine's point. He didn't like Kojo's route at Rutgers. So there you go. All right. Do I have anything else? I am going to say yes, I do. There was some news over the weekend in terms of recruiting. Michigan got up to 28 commitments where they got the DB, Jeremiah Lowe. And Rivals in their 2014 rankings had Michigan. They stayed at 5. Well, we got an update over the weekend. Michigan get a decommitment. Elias Rudolph, the edge out of Florida, originally from Ohio. He flipped to the U. He's going to the Canes. This makes 2 years in a row. Or that DeChambeau. He flipped from Michigan too. So minus Rudolph, that puts Michigan at 27 commits, and now they're at number 6 on the rankings. So that's where it's at. Thanks to Reno's Hot Dog Stand and Catering. Got to go see those guys. We'll tell you about the dates that are coming up for the boys, and you'll want to get out there. Andre's a little bit late, but it's always good. Better late than ever for Andres. We will see you here coming up on Wednesday. Everybody have a great rest of their day, and so long.